Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Batwoman, and it's definitely one I didn't think I'd be making 24 hours ago. So, Batwoman has just started its third season, with its second episode of the season actually airing later today from when this video is going up. But in the lead up to that, we got some big stuff going down on social media involving Batwoman herself. Well, just not the current Batwoman. So Ruby Rose, who of course played Kate Kane or Batwoman in season 1 of Batwoman, left the show in very rushed and odd circumstances where the whole situation just felt weird and suspicious as to what the real reasons were. Now there were outlets online and specifically on YouTube as well that tried to cash in on that drama, if you want to call it, by saying, "Oh, this happened and this happened with Ruby and this person, etc., etc." And Ruby stayed pretty silent on the whole situation for a while, outside of the fact that she was leaving the show until now. Now, just to highlight, I usually don't cover this type of like gossip and drama and all of that. I'm not Keemstar, but I felt it was important to highlight and cover this to all of you, as you may not see it on Twitter or Instagram or wherever it might be, because as I said, when Ruby initially left, it was under odd circumstances with like a lack of clarity around the situation. And now Ruby is giving her side of it. And I believe her, and I think it finishes off the story or the stories that we've talked about previously when she was leaving. I mean, if this isn't true and what she is saying is false, then I would be shocked. And just a warning, it does dive into some somewhat deep and traumatic stuff that went on with her. So just a heads up in case that could make you feel a bit uneasy, but I'll let you know when we get there. And sorry if this is like long-winded, but I'm going to give you the whole story from what she is telling us mixed in with like added context to what she is referring to at certain stages. So yeah, just a heads up in regards to that. So yeah, not long ago, earlier today, from when the video will come out, but it's like about an hour ago from when I'm recording this, Ruby Rose posted a series of images, videos, and statements on her Instagram story targeted at the production side of Batwoman Season 1, that of course being Warner Brothers TV. Now, she did say the CW in her post, but I think she mainly meant WBTV. She doesn't mention Mark Pedowitz, who's the head of the CW. She doesn't really mention anyone CW related, so I think she just sort of mixed up WBTV and the CW, so I think it's all directed at WBTV people, outside of the fact that she said CW at the beginning. But the main people she is targeting are Peter Roth, the former WBTV chairman. That's somewhat important to maybe why this is coming out now, as well as Batwoman showrunner Caroline Dreers and two cast members who we'll talk about later. Now, Ruby posted some photos, or specifically x-rays, which showcase injuries she sustained on the set of Batwoman, which I think, if my timeline is correct, were shortly after the wrap-up of Crisis on Infinite Earths' filming. So it seems most of Batwoman, that first half was going fine in the lead up to Crisis, but when filming went back after that, she sustained these injuries, which, as she says, included a broken neck, a completely broken rib, which is like snapped in two, as well as a tumor, of all things. Now, the injuries and medical issues are bad enough. However, she was told that if she didn't go back to filming Batwoman within 10 days, 10 days after surgery, not only herself but the entire cast and crew would be fired, and that she would be given the entire blame for it all. It would all be her fault, and she would be blamed for the studio losing millions of dollars. Now, she also accuses Peter Roth of like taking advantage of females, whether that be employees or people looking to get somewhere in Hollywood. It's unclear in regards to that side of things, so I won't really touch on that. I'm just saying that she did mention it. Now, Peter Roth left the role of chairman of WBTV earlier this year, so it was announced he was leaving last year, but then he didn't properly leave till the beginning of this year. And he had been in like a high role at WBTV for a while, so I don't know if things were like stacking up against him and that's why he left, but due to him leaving, nothing really came out in regards to this potentially, so it's hard to tell if that's the reason why Ruby's speaking now, because it was known, but then he left, so it wasn't this big deal because he wasn't in that position anymore. Hard to tell, but obviously he did Ruby Rose dirty. Now, in regards to her injury, if you watched Batwoman Season 1, you would have noticed that the cowl for Batwoman changes around the halfway point of the season. Now, it's really random and just comes out of nowhere. Now, at the time, it was said it was changed due to an allergic reaction, but wouldn't that have been noticed after the pilot? I mean, that's filmed months before the rest of the season started filming, so it seems that the allergic reaction was like a cover-up for her neck injury and how the cowl would impact that. Now, I'm not saying that's a fact, that's just my logical assumption. Even at the time, I thought allergic reaction, but she's been wearing it for like months now. So I think that's the reasoning, but Maybe that gets confirmed, I'm not too sure. Now, Ruby does go on to talk about how she took a pay cut compared to her previous roles in order to play Batwoman, and she's a lead here, but yeah, she took a pay cut in order to play the role due to it being a passion project, which it would be for her. I'm not denying that at all. I think we can all understand it would be a passion project and what Batwoman stands for. And she was excited to go to Comic Con, interact with fans and everything like that. However, due to her filming schedule for the show, she couldn't attend it, and they wouldn't adjust her schedule so she could attend, which they would for the other people. I'm sure, you know, in Comic Con 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if Grant Gustin or Stephen Amell wanted to go, but they were meant to film on a certain day, they would rearrange it, or they just wouldn't schedule them on that day. But Ruby was scheduled for that day. So because she couldn't go, she was forced to make an apology video for not being able to attend Comic Con. And funnily enough, if we're going to even use the word funnily in this type of video, I was at this Comic Con. I went to Comic Con in 2019 where at the DC TV panel, they showed the pilot for Batwoman. Ruby was meant to be there. I think she was on the little pamphlet advertisement thing that she was meant to be there. And the other people who came on stage were Caroline Drews, the showrunner, and Sarah Schechter, who's like another executive producer on the show. But there was no mention of Ruby not coming, and it was only said until those two walked on stage. That's when they said, oh yeah, she's not coming. It was really awkward, and people had questions ready to ask Ruby. It was a weird situation then, and it's clearly a weird situation now thanks to Ruby's viewpoint. So yeah, just very odd. Now, next up, Ruby dived into her like overall experiences on the show, and she first made it clear that she didn't quit the show. However, she added she would not return to the show regardless of the amount of money she would be offered. And she highlighted that the show destroyed Kate Kane and Batwoman as characters, and it wasn't her, and that she was just following orders. Now, of course, you could critique her acting and all of that, but she isn't writing the story and building the world through that storytelling. And also, she highlighted that she really wasn't allowed any contribution to any of that anyway. But she does talk about witnessing, along with other cast and crew, the injuries of people, including a crew member getting third-degree burns, which literally melted their skin, and that she was one of the few people that reached out to that person following the injury, and that she was also made to do a sex scene straight after that incident. So they just saw someone get all these, horrific burns and everything like that, and it's like, okay, by the way, jumping into bed here, let's go. She also says that 2 stunt doubles quit due to injuries, that she was almost blinded after being cut very close to her own eye, and of course, the woman that was left a quadriplegic after an incident on set. Now, this was already made public. This was too big of a thing to cover up. Most people already knew about the quadriplegic thing if you've been on Twitter and stuff and you just knew about the Batwoman behind the scenes. But Ruby wasn't happy with the way it was handled and how the woman was then forced to start her own GoFundMe rather than being compensated by Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers said, oh, she got injured because she was on her phone, but she was a PA, she was a personal assistant. She was a PA. Her job is to be on the phone. She uses the phone to communicate. So if she didn't use the phone, she wouldn't be doing her job. But Ruby also highlights that this incident only happened due to the show not being shut down at the same time as the other shows when COVID happened last year. And that is when Ruby dives into Caroline Dreers, the showrunner. So Ruby says that Caroline Dreers, as I said, the showrunner for Batwoman, has no heart and wanted the Batwoman cast and crew to finish the season throughout the pandemic, which had just started, despite the cast and crew worried about what was going on, and most of them being distracted by the outside world and just what was going on. And also, it's important to remember the other shows in like that film in Vancouver, like Flash, Supergirl and all them, they had shut down. Supergirl was on its final episode and had a day left to film, and they still shut down. They took it seriously. So she said that Caroline only visited the set 4 or 5 times in the entire first season, which is odd for a showrunner, especially in a first season. Like, fair enough if COVID was happening, but this is pre-COVID and she wasn't visiting. And in these visits, she would mislead Ruby in regards to what she could and couldn't say in regards to the injury she had. And though Batwoman did eventually shut down, it wasn't because of Caroline ordering it, it was because the Canadian government ordered them and made them. Now, Ruby does admit faults of her own in this statement. She admits to fighting with people on set, but only those that weren't doing the right things in regards to providing proper safety in regards to like certain areas. And she says she got on well with pretty much the entire cast and crew outside of a tiny few. And she does talk about 2 cast members in particular, one in more bad ways than the other. So firstly, Dougray Scott, who played her father on the show, Jacob Kane. Now, she says that he abused women on set, also hurting a female stunt double, and was just overall just very disrespectful to the female members of the cast and crew. And when Ruby sent an email requesting a no yelling policy because he would yell at people, specifically women, she was declined. Now, Dougray is now off the show. He left at the end of season 2, but the other cast member she had an issue with is still on the show, and that is Cameron Johnson, who plays Luke Fox. Now, Ruby admits that she was late one time, and that was because she was in hospital because she had these injuries. Now, for those that don't know, one of the things that went out was that Ruby didn't follow the rules, and she just did what she wanted, and the cast would have to wait around for her until she was ready to film. And she says that Cameras was the one who leaked all this stuff out to people, with Ruby saying that Cameras said, after she left the hospital, yeah, well, maybe if people were not late, we would make our days. Now, I think this is more of just a dick thing to say, and maybe he didn't know exactly what was going on. I will give him the benefit of the doubt here, but obviously based off this, if it was a mistake on his part and he just didn't know, he clearly never apologized for it. Otherwise, I don't think Ruby would be too angry about it. So, I don't know, make of that what you will. Now, at this time, when I'm making this, this is all we have so far. Warner Brothers, WBTV, and anyone associated with the show and people that I mentioned haven't responded. At the time I'm making it, I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to set this to schedule. So I'll probably go up at 5 a.m. my time, which is probably about 6 hours time. So something might come out. If so, I might put it in the comments and just give you an update, or so I might put it down there. But I would be surprised if nothing was said sometime soon over the next couple of days at the very least, especially if this starts to snowball. And seeing that Ruby Rose doesn't really have a small social media presence, it's fairly large. I could see it snowballing fairly easily. It's all over Twitter. Like, big accounts are starting to talk about it. It's not gonna, die down, I don't think. Especially if other people come out and maybe potentially support her that might be on their last legs, or if there's crew members that, feel the same way as Ruby. I think we could see something big happen. But I do think it's right, and I just think it's right that Ruby get her side of the story out. Like, people made fun of her leaving the show, saying that she couldn't handle the pressure or whatever it might be. And I think we all had that thought going through our heads that maybe she just quit and everything. But she makes it clear she didn't quit. She was almost like, seems like she was forced out. But that's how we were led to think, based off what was said to us from the side of production, that she just sort of wanted to move on. But she's obviously saying that's not really what happened. And there was a lot of things that went on behind the scenes that seemed to have been covered up. But yeah, we'll see what happens over the next couple of days. I probably won't make another video on it. But if there's an update over the next couple of hours while I'm asleep and before this video goes live, I will update either in the description of the video or in the comment section somewhere. So check there for an update if there is one. But yeah, what do you think of this? I'm not going to ask for likes. I'm not going to ask for subscribes. I just thought it was a video that I think that needed to be put out there just to sort of wrap up this story. This probably isn't the end of it. But I think in regards to Ruby's side, I think it's important to get it out there. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. As I said, not going to ask for the likes and subscribes, but just let me know what you think down there in the comments. And I'll see you sometime soon. Goodbye.